following call. In a letter to the Commissioners dated March 8, 2025, and reading as follows. The Honorable Members of the Delta County Board of Commissioners. Dear Commissioners, a committee of the whole meeting of the Delta County Board of Commissioners is scheduled for Thursday, March 13th, 2025 at 5:15 p.m. in the conference room at the Delta County Service Center. Sincerely yours, Nancy Presaraki, Delta County Clerk. Please rise for a word of prayer. Lord, as we begin this meeting, we are thankful for our many blessings. We ask for guidance to help our commissioners make decisions in the best interests of the citizens we serve. And Lord, we pray for the safety of our military men and women. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Commissioner Milner?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Williams?
Here.
Commissioner Van Genhoven?
Here.
And Commissioner Jensen?
Here. Okay, welcome everybody. Let's see here. We need adoption of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Support.
Any comment? Favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. There is no communications received forwarded. There's no old business.
Did we want to do public comment on agenda items?
Oh, I'm sorry. I went right by that. Public comment on agenda items. Public comment on agenda items. Seeing none, do we have?
And there's no
any?
remote ones either.
Okay. Thank you for
You're welcome.
that. New business. Controller HR position.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before we enter, which of the three formats for the committee of the whole are we actually going to utilize today? It seems to me the informal one is the best based on our size of our body, where the actual committee of the whole is for large assemblies. The quasi committee of the whole is for medium size, where the informal consideration, which is what we're doing, and based on our size, would probably be the best format.
And can you just quickly describe what the informal format is?
It basically is the same thing, with the exception, I mean, debate-wise, you can still, if you want to set a infinite timeline. So if we say 2:00, that's it, that's where that ends.
Oh.
The other part is the new business part still takes place, where the motion for that would be that we are going to bring forth the question and discuss informally the position. And then at the end, you would actually do like you would in the committee of the whole, where you would rise and report. And then the last part would be you don't actually adjourn for the committee of the whole, you actually, I got the term here real quick. Yeah, it actually does, at the end, the committee doesn't actually adjourn, it actually dissolves at the termination of the form of the committee of the whole.
Do you have those in writing?
Yep.
Oh. Can I see it?
Yeah, absolutely. Formal consideration one
Or
is,
John,
starts on
you're
the,
gonna be the one who makes the
Yeah.
decision, so if you wanna read them over.
I just want to make sure, based on our size, we're using the right format. The discussion and opening the amount of debate, all of that is basically the same. It creates that more informal flow of conversation on all three of them.
So which one are you, the Quasel?
No, not the quasi, it would, I think,
informal.
based on our size, the informal consideration format is actually the best format based on our size.
Okay. I guess we will go with the informal.
Can I read that over, please?
Yeah,
then,
absolutely.
So I know what I
Yep.
know what I have to follow.
Yep, bottom left.
Oh, yeah,
And
thank
I'm
you.
just going to quickly review our
Yep.
rules of procedure, what we have in our own rules real quick.
Well, if I remember right, in our rules and procedure, it does say we follow Robert's Rules
Robert's
of
rules,
Order.
yeah.
It doesn't say, well, and no, but the reason I say that is because a lot of committees are Robert's Rules light, or Robert's Rules interpreted by the chair.
Right.
So, or guided by Robert's Rules. And as of right now, our rules and procedures say we do follow Robert's rules.
Yeah, the only thing I was
And this
looking at
is
is if
more or
there was
less the
anything
informal.
specific.
Right.
Yep.
And, yeah, this is more informal, but when we, as Commissioner Williams has stated, we will be going over that when we start kind of tweaking our rules and procedure. We went through the formatting of getting it digitized and making it readable. However, we still planned on going through it and actually making those changes. But as of right now, it says Robert's Rules of Order is our go-to, and that's what we follow.
Yep. So we'll be in the informal. So, as of that, we will go to new business controller HR position.
Then I would move that the question of the controller HR position be entered informally for
Support.
discussion.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Pat, whoa.
He supported.
I supported
Oh.
it.
The motion.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passed. So, who wants to start on any,
I think I could start just very generally. I would love to hear from Ashley, just sort of what the needs of the administration department are, like what her sort of vision relative to this change. And I think that the biggest change is just that we had a position that was, I think it was called the, hold on real quick here. I have to go back down to the bottom so that I know what I'm saying here. HR Specialist Administrative Clerk. And then that has transitioned to a different need, which is Controller HR Specialist. And I just would like to have Ashley describe to us what the needs of, from her perspective, what the needs of the administrative department are. If that works with everybody.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Okay.
So the HR Specialist Administrative Clerk was developed back in 2023. During that time, there was a large amount of human resources work that needed to be conducted. And I was just beginning I was actually interim administrator, I believe, at that time. Now, as time has progressed and talking to my staff in other departments, the need is for somebody in finance that is available and answer questions on a day-to-day basis. I have lots of meetings that you're all aware of that I attend, and I'm not there to answer their questions right away. So we were looking for somebody that is watching over the finances every day. So that is their main request.
Okay. And looking at the history of it, when I put this spreadsheet together, which was basically to kind of analyze all the data that we were provided, I did note that back in, it looks like in 2020, that controller position, what you're talking about right now, it was identified then that it was needed, and that, I think it was Tom Sauber during he was filling in or something, that he had mentioned the importance of that position. And then, so at some point then, we combined that position back into so we broke it out. We had administrator/controller. We broke that out. You were hired as a controller/HR
Correct.
specialist, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then, and then after that, we combined them again, right? And so now we're looking at breaking them out again.
Correct.
So, okay, so that the history is correct as to what we were looking at then. Okay, I just want to make sure I understand that.
I mean, so
officially combined.
the job I don't
I'm sorry,
believe
what?
the job description between when it was separated and when it was brought back together was changed, like modified in the way to represent like the separation in the. So when you're looking at the administrator job description of what would it have been? When was it
Was this
created?
back in 2020 or
2020,
2019?
and then the current one that I have, I don't believe there was any changes to show like a separation. It was just the duties had to be performed and there's nobody, so then of course it's the administrator, because it's a catch-all position.
Oh, you mean, so, okay, let me make sure I understand. So back in 2019, the administrator position, it wasn't administrator/controller. The administrator was just doing the function because it was necessary.
It had always been, the administrator covered the controller position.
Okay.
Until Emily was hired, then it was separated out. But what I was saying is, it was never officially combined back together again. They just
Okay.
never filled the controller position. It was
Her
never
con-
combined together.
When they hired Ashley?
When
you
they
mean?
hired Ashley, it was never
Her
officially combined.
contract says administrator controller.
Yeah,
Is it on the title?
yeah,
okay.
it is.
It is.
It was combined back together.
Right, I was just saying the duties inside of it never changed. It just, they added the title,
Okay,
that's all.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Now, personnel already agreed to what, everything,
The personnel forwarded it to the full board.
okay.
Or sorry, yeah, to finance,
gonna
you're right,
say-
to finance.
I was gonna say, that doesn't- that's not how it's
It was the
reflected.
finance, it was the finance, you're right.
Okay, yeah, because what we had done is it looks like it started in January, and like I had said previously, I don't know whether or not on January 17th, if the Personnel Board tabled the conversation about controller or not, because it's not in the meeting minutes, so I don't know that. It just says it was tabled, but there was no reason for it. And then it was tabled it was then sent to finance, and then finance tabled it because they were waiting for personnel to complete the job description. And then we in finance had it again, and we deferred because we still hadn't heard back from personnel on what their final recommendation was. And then it was back at personnel. So it went back and forth, but there was no final determination that came out of personnel.
From what I remember, there were changes that needed to be made because in the discussion, it was originally controller, but I wanted to add a grant supervisor into that job description, and then I don't think it came back after that. But-
Yeah, because it says on 130, it says in your guys' minutes, discussion took place about administrative support needs, no action was taken. Since you took no action, it wouldn't have come to us. And then, so we didn't take any action. And then we talked about it again, and at that point, I'm like, oh my God, can we just all get together
Yeah.
and talk about this?
Yeah, for
So that's why I thought it was important that we all just come together, and that the chair could be a part of the conversation as well, so. Okay, so I think then, if we look at the new position, which is, and Ashley, please make sure I get this right, you are requesting controller/HR specialist.
Correct.
Okay. Can you describe that job? Is it what's in the job description that you provided, or would you have modified that job description?
The personnel did make some modifications. That's
Okay.
been deferred over to the finance committee. I believe one of the changes was the grant position, is that correct? Kelly, I'm sorry, Commissioner Vangenhoven.
Call me Kelly, you're fine.
And
yes.
then the other one that we made a change to was listed as number 14, assist payroll and accounts payable processing as needed. And then providing backup support to the administrator if I'm unavailable to process, authorize accounts payable or payroll. So right now, there's nobody else. And so it's just to provide just a backup individual.
So the job description that you have in front of you that you just referred to, what is the date on that? Because the one I have is 5/5/2020.
Here,
So if there was
So it's
modifications, is it the one that's in the,
It's on the cloud. It
It's in the
says
cloud, okay.
revised on top.
gotcha. I'll pull that one up because I don't have that one right here.
Yeah,
in
the
front of me.
only change, that, just to reiterate what, Administrator Young said, was that I felt it necessary to get someone, for grants.
there it
Only
is.
because I wanted it to be a very fluid approach, where department heads would still be in charge of their grants, but that they could go to the controller for the finance portion, and then once that would be settled, it would go to our administrator for final review and submission. So it would be more of a logical step-by-step process, and so much just on either the department head or the administrator. And I believe Commissioner Johnson agreed with that. Yeah.
And then I also want to state, so the current job description, so the one that was approved way back in 2020, there is another change. So there was number 4, it says provide internal control and oversight over financial operations, including accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, and related activities. Number 6 below that said design, recommend, and administer financial controls to regulate expenditures in accordance with appropriations and available funds. We removed number 6 because it's identified in number 4. That's the internal control and oversight over financial operations.
Okay. So then what is so when I looked at the job description for county administrator / controller, which is your current position, is that correct? I want to make sure. Okay. When I looked at that, and then I look at the new job description or the existing controller / HR specialist, the one that we had previously, I have 6 overlapping responsibilities. And so I guess I would want to understand what's different between what you would be doing versus what the controller would be doing. Because if we're hiring a controller, we're removing responsibility or taking away tasks that you need to perform currently. Is that correct?
That I'm performing currently.
Yeah. Like this new position would be taking on some
Just
of
tasks, but not the
your,
responsibility. The responsibility is still held in this position. So as it was, I'm referencing back as it was done before when I was the controller, I never presented anything to the Board of Commissioners. I would have a meeting with the administrator, we would, discuss whatever.
Right, makes sense.
And then we would bring it forward, or the administrator would bring it forward.
so your position title, would it still say county administrator / controller? And then we would have a controller / HR specialist?
We can change the title to controller HR specialist if it need be. I don't believe we should have the same titles.
I wouldn't think so either. That's why I was trying to understand, like, what, so when I think about, like, your position, I think about your level at where you are in the organization. You're overseeing
Correct.
pretty much everything. And then there are positions that report through you that are doing the functional work, but you're overseeing the work that's being done. And then you're coming to the board to present that information, help develop policies that might need to happen based on what's going on at the functional level, that presenting to us, that sort of thing, out in the public, So I would assume that a controller is going to be the controller, that you wouldn't be the controller anymore, but you would be overseeing the functionality of that controller.
Correct.
Okay, so if that's the case, there are just what I considered to be like 6 items that were inside of your job description, I think almost all under, it's 5 of them, they're under finance, in your job description under finance, that would then be covered by the controller. For instance, number 1 under finance, it says serves as chief financial officer of the county, is responsible for the presentation or preparation and presentation of the budget. You would be presenting the budget, but you wouldn't have to be preparing the budget, because the controller would be preparing the budget.
What do you consider for preparation? Would it be budget meetings and all of that? Because I
So-
would be a part of that.
Okay, all I'm doing is just looking at
No, I
job
know.
descriptions, because I don't know, I would have to have you
Okay.
tell me that. So on the controller job description, it says that it says under number 5, prepare and monitor the annual county budget. So I have two job descriptions that say they're preparing the budget. So I'm not sure what is that an overlap or is it not? You know, do we need to change the language so that it's more representative of what's true and actual that these two positions would be doing?
Should the administrator part of it be overseeing controller?
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. So I'm getting at that the language, and this is what I think is so important. I mean, I have a lot of experience with like positions and stuff, and so I look at these things very carefully because I want to make sure that we don't have language that's overlapping so that it looks like there's two people doing the same job. We want to make sure that it's clear where the delineation is, who's doing the functional work, and then who's overseeing that work.
Right.
So in this case, I would say that the number one under the county administrator's position, it would say serves as chief financial officer of the county and is responsible for oversight of the annual county budget and presentation to the county board. There would be language there that would change so that it's not saying that Ashley's doing the functional work. Because she doesn't have to do the functional work, she has to oversee it. So just making sure that the
But
language.
There are
covers it.
times where Ms. Young will be getting into the weeds and being,
Yeah.
it
Of
will be, it will be that,
Well,
I would look at it more of as,
administrator.
how do you write it as we're a team, but I'm the captain type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just have to figure out that language, and I'm not sure how to say that.
So there's a really, I think, a really kind of neat way of doing this, and it's called, it's basically doing a rubric on action words. And so you basically take, in a job description, all the action words, prepare, oversee, monitor, all these action words, and then you run them through a rubric, and then whatever pops out is the right word to use based on what the definition of that, or, you know, how it's used in the sentence. And so it's a very systematic way to do it, but I just worry about creating positions, and I don't think this is just, it's hard to, we have a lot of positions, and there's a lot of job descriptions, and there's some inconsistency with them. So, like, I'm not trying to point fingers at someone doing something wrong here, I'm just saying that it's not really okay to have two controllers when we only pay, you know, one
Well,
controller,
and
right?
You don't want to run into, well, I thought you were doing that.
I thought you were
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
that,
exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
you know,
No, that
so,
makes sense.
There was something else that we had even for earlier on in the job description portion with the controller HR specialist. The very first one is the supervision received falls under the county administrator. The next one, supervision exercise, that there's no supervision exercise. But when you go to the essential functions, number 1, it says supervise. the
right, it's
financial
supervising
accounting.
financial systems, which, you know, they're not people, and I think when we write our job descriptions, this is something that I made a note of, because I have an IT background, there is supervision when you are supervising systems, but I think the county is saying supervision exercises over human beings, not
Correct.
over systems. And so there would be no supervision unless there were human beings reporting to the position. But in some positions, there is a lot of supervision, but they're over systems.
Correct.
You know, so, and there's merit to that.
Yep. And
It's like supervising a human being. It's a very complex process.
Correct, I agree.
that
I
sometimes
was
isn't-
just, based off of what's listed earlier in the job description, if you were just to read that based on the term supervision, and very
Yeah.
valid point. But which one is that? Because, you know, we say there's one that you're supervised, who your boss is in this case, or your
Right.
supervisor. Then we say there's no supervision exercise, but then we go to the third one, which goes to your point of being systems. We say they do supervise something, so.
Yeah, it could just say
Just to be clarified.
maintains, you know, maintains or provides or
That would-
oversees, you know, that sort of thing. But it's,
Yeah.
yeah, the wording is a little bit funny on that, so. So the budget one was 1. And then I also have, I have the same exact situation with the annual financial audit, that the controller position prepares, manages, and supervises the county's annual financial audit. And then under the county administrator controller, we have serves as coordinator with Board of Commissioners, selected independent auditors to provide efficient and cost-effective audit services. So again, I think it's, you're overseeing the audit process with a functional person doing the, work with the auditor, making sure that the auditors are getting what they need, they're giving, data and information to the auditor. But you're overseeing it at the Board of Commissioners level, bringing it to us.
I guess you're saying those two lines overlap each other. Serves as a coordinator.
Yeah. So, but you do say with Board of Commissioners, selected independent auditors, and I think the controller would be selecting or helping select the auditor, or is that not true?
No, I mean, it wasn't
Okay,
at all. I didn't select the auditors when I was the controller, because the administrator, anything for professional services under to $15,000 is decided by the administrator. Anything above that is decided by the Board of Commissioners.
so when it says prepare for, manage, and supervise the county's annual financial audit, what does that mean then?
So they give us a list, and I help organize of how to compile all of the documents to give to the, as a controller, to give to the auditors, is what I did.
Oh, okay, so you as the controller, you were preparing the data, and then the administrator was taking all that data, deciding on what needed to go to the auditor, and then communicating that with the board.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. So it's really, they're not really supervising the annual financial audit then. They're just preparing documents for the administrator to bring, I mean, really, that's what it is. They're pulling the data, and then you're doing what you say in number 2, which is, providing efficient, cost-effective, well, you're not actually providing efficient, cost-effective audit services, but you're overseeing that. I guess what I'm getting at is.
Yeah, I'm thinking through the audit process and trying to think back in, before.
Yeah,
So the administrator would sign all of the documentation. I would go through the audit process. It was combined. It's not very black and white on what duties that we provided. Yes, I was more of, if they had questions like day-to-day operations, and we would go to talk to departments, like how they did their receiptings, paid their invoices,
and
and
would
such like
you,
that.
would you as administrator go and do that, or would you as the controller? Okay,
Controller, I did that. I'm
Okay.
just trying to think of, the administrator would have more of the oversight conversations. But I can see maybe not as much
Okay.
as supervise. I believe the supervise would be just gathering and talking with department heads on their processes and procedures. But that wouldn't be really supervised.
yeah, the word supervise is a little odd in that
Right.
sentence.
It
I'm not
is.
sure what that supervisory
Because it
role
is a task and not an individual.
Yeah, yeah, okay. If anybody has anything else, I mean, I can keep going, but I don't want to keep, The other one is, so on the controller HR, we have supervise financial and accounting functions of the county as provided by the state and federal statute and regulations and by county policy. So supervise financial and accounting functions of the county. And then I have under the controller, the county administrator / controller, monitors financial laws and regulations that impact the county, coordinates efforts of affected personnel to assure compliance, and serves as liaison with Department of Treasury relative to laws and regulations in the area. It felt like there was overlap on the financial laws and regulations. So on this particular one, for your job description, I would assume you are definitely coordinating efforts that might affect, personnel and compliance related to them and so forth. But wouldn't the controller be the one that would be responsible for monitoring financial laws and regulations? I mean, I'm trying to
No.
get stuff off of your plate as well.
Again, typically it was both of us. She would be in meetings that would bring up financial laws and regulations and would inform me about them, or I would be in training sessions and I would talk to her. So it was back and forth. I mean, supervised financial accounting functions, what that was making sure that any of our policies and procedures regarding the budget was, or that if the state has anything, making sure that we are in compliance with those. And then-
Yeah, and I think there's a better way to phrase that. Like you just said exactly what I was thinking, and I looked at like an example controller job for the government, and they had a bullet point that said, ensure compliance with relevant accounting standards, and defines the gap as relative accounting standards, government regulations, and internal policies. And that was more clear to me than this supervised financial accounting functions. It just seemed like it was a higher level of work than what the controller would actually be doing. I mean, they are obviously ensuring compliance. I think that's a big part of a controller's job, is ensuring compliance.
Absolutely.
But if you say there's no overlap there, then that's fine.
Well, I think rephrasing that maybe to show the assuring compliance of financial and accounting functions of the county and as provided, and just
Yeah.
putting the compliance part instead of supervise
Yeah.
financial and accounting functions.
Yeah. And I'll give
I
you
like
this
that better.
afterward. This actually was really helpful for me because it had, it was really specific to controller positions, and it was very concise. Some of the wording was really concise, and it was just helpful. But that, I'll give it to you when we get done here. Let's see, then the next one was periodically reviews county financial systems. So this one would be on the county administrator controller position, and makes recommendations for improvement where appropriate. And I have on the controller, it says provide internal control and oversight over financial operations, including accounts payable. So that would be all the systems. And would that be something that the controller would be doing, which would be providing internal controls and oversight over financial systems, or is that something that the county administrator would be doing?
So,
I mean, would you be periodically reviewing the county financial systems, or would the controller be doing that?
yes, I'm just trying to think of a better way to phrase, I guess, number 4 under the HR, controller HR position. So when it says on the administrator's position, it says periodically reviews county financial systems on a rotating basis. That's reviewing the accounts payable, and the accounts payroll will be included in the financial systems, which is done by the administrator. But there is an addition that I did note earlier, that if I was away from the office, the controller would take over. So they would be performing that.
So they'd be like
too.
your second in command kind of thing with that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so on this example job, it's like staying current on changes in accounting standards, regulations, best practices, develop and implement internal controls, safeguard governmental assets, and ensure integrity of financial data, that sort of thing. That's the controller, and then you're sort of checking that. It's like the checks and balances on that. Okay. And I think the last one I had is under personnel. And that would be, let's see, number 5. So under yours, it has coordinate, your position, coordinates implementation of county personnel policies, assist department heads, blah, 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 okay? And then under number 14 on the controller HR, it has oversee the county's human resources function, which includes benefits administration, workers' comp, administration, regulatory, so on and so forth. is the controller HR specialist doing the, sort of the, they're not doing the hiring and termination process or any of that, right? Okay, but are they doing like, they're not doing any employee reviews, no salary structure, none of that stuff?
Well, they assist in the salary structure because of the finance end. So like they'll, give assistance in it.
Okay, because it does say oversee, so it says oversee the county's human resource function, which includes benefits administration, workers' comp administration, regulatory compliance, employee recruiting, new hire orientations, and policy formulation. So I see they're different, but it's the word oversee that I think is, are they overseeing? So,
In regards to the benefits administration, workers' comp administration, it's an oversee.
okay,
Others perform those duties. Regulatory compliance, employee recruiting, new hire orientations, and policy formulation. I guess that the policy portion would be assisting. But the other two, or the other three that I had stated, they are performing. Because of the onboarding, so the orientation, scheduling, employee recruiting, I guess that,
do they do employee recruiting?
well, that's really left to the department heads. And then the administrator does within their department, or the board of
Okay.
commissioners does the recruiting. And then regulatory compliance, yes. So I'm sorry, I take it.
I mean,
It'd be
those
two
would-
of them that they're physically doing. The other, benefits administration, workers' comp administration is oversight. Employee recruiting is assisting, and policy formulation is assisting.
But you're doing everything else above that. So, under personnel, under your job description, all of those things stay as is.
Correct.
Okay. By the way, you're missing Parks Manager on your.
I wrote it on there, but
Yeah.
Parks Manager was not created until after this was
I know,
done.
I saw that though,
I
okay.
wrote it on there too.
All right. I think that covers all my questions, so.
Would it be possible during this meeting that we could agree to those changes and forward that to the board?
Well, I think in my, from the finance perspective,
Yeah.
we have not developed a number for this
No.
position.
Well, I
And
was
so-
hoping we could do that today. That's why.
And we could,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, we could,
that-
but at this point, I'm not exactly sure what the job description is going to look like. I mean, it's going to be similar to this, but there's some things that are being removed, and I think there's some language that will be changed.
I mean, we could,
Well, during
did
this
we
work
have?
session.
Where was it?
we could send forward the recommendations and actually come up with
Oh, there it
the
is.
actual job descriptions based on the recommended changes that we've had, whether it's verbiage with supervise and oversee and
Because
those
I'd like,
items.
yeah, I'd like to have something go to the board
Yeah.
from this meeting.
And that's fine. I think when we first were looking at, this is where I think I run into a little bit of a challenge that we're going to have to figure out is we had this position which was called it was called the HR Specialist Administrative Clerk, and I think that the board had agreed that the range would be 35 to 45,000. And then they made a determination that they would start it at 45,000 on June 5th, 2023. But this position, I believe, and Ashley, I think we talked about this somewhere, it must have been in finance, but you had presented a range that would be 55 to 65?
Yeah, I believe.
Is that, yeah, and I know it's not in our minutes or anything, but I remember talking about it.
Right, we didn't, you never made a motion on it or
Right.
anything, it was just an informal discussion. And I think we based that off of, around the amount where I left the position.
And I think that was what, 55?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, that I have right here was 55 previously. I think that's where I got that, so.
So, can I ask a question? Yeah. So, are we changing your job description, or are we not changing your job description? Because when we talked about doing the committee of the whole, you said your job description most likely wouldn't change all that much. I'm just confused because if we're splitting out an administrator controller to now be a controller, then you would be the administrator. So would your duties solely be administrative?
So there is a job description is the duties and responsibilities and not the individual tasks. And I think that's where the confusion is, correct? Where you were be separating, because what I see is we changed over, like preparation, oversight. So it is still my responsibility and my duty to have the county budget, to have the audit created.
So you're gonna go basically from doing and performing the task to overseeing the task, is that correct?
In part, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
But I would still be attending the meetings, talking with but I'm not entering the numbers into the system,
Okay.
I guess.
So back in 2020, when they pulled this controller position out of the administrator position, they reduced the administrator salary by $7,000 to accommodate that. That was, it was on. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
on
good
May
May
12th, 2020. Brought forward contract to be opened and discussed due to addition of, and then Moyle expressed disinterest in amending contract and thought salary should stay the same. So somewhere in here, somewhere it talked about that. And then it was Moyle expressed disinterest in amending contract and thought they should stay the same. Johnson wants to make recommendation to the full board based on the offloading of certain duties. So it's basically the same conversation we're having right now. But it looks like the contract went from 98,000 to 92,000. So it went down. Removing controller responsibilities, reduced admin salary. Admin and board members negotiate dropping salary, started at 90,000 and ended at 92,000. So they did drop the salary from 98 to 92 when they removed the controller position. And I guess the question would just be, what's different now than back then?
And then they also said after 3 months, they'd give a $3,000 raise, and then after 6 months, it was another 3, correct?
Okay, so that was later, that was that was in 2022.
No.
Normal
I think
request.
the previous
No.
was 3 months and 6 months, so then it brought it back up to 98,000 within that year.
Within a year, okay.
Within, 3 months and then 6 months, so.
It's, yeah, the
brought
renewal
it
of
back.
contract with 3 years, are those are those your cost of living increases, is that what you're referring to?
No, it was,
That was-
salary started at 92,000. After 3 months, it was a $3,000 raise. And then after 6 months, it was another $3,000 raise. So within 6 months, it was 98,000.
Didn't we have Mr. Sauber also, if I remember right, we had him kind of coaching Emily up, and by the time, our previous administrator up, and we figured that that cost savings would be going back to our administrator at the time. That's-
I wouldn't
that's
know
what
that.
that's what
I
that's what
wasn't there. I
that's-
don't know.
That's what I thought I remembered.
Yeah, because it does say that, it does say that you asked for a wage study,
Yep.
but it was tabled. So I don't know if you guys ever did that.
Nope.
Okay.
So my question would be, back in 2023, when the former board, which Commissioner Malner's the only one left, from that board, when they combined the administrator controller position, there were many comments regarding how they felt that job needed to be heavy in finance. And there were YouTube links provided in the Nextcloud for those meetings. And they said, Commissioner Barron said 75% of this job is finance, and we need somebody as our administrator who is well-versed in finance, which we have Ashley right now. So how much of the wage is based on administrator duties, and how much of the wage is based on controller duties.
Or
That-
finance?
Or finance. That's what I would like to know, because if we're going from task-oriented, administrator, controller, we're going from the task-oriented controller to the overseeing controller, what is the difference in salary for that? Because if you're going to become just our administrator, what would be your experience and qualifications for public administration? I don't anticipate we would have to repost these positions, but if administrator is going to be your job title, based on your education and experience, what would be a starting wage for administrator? Because now we're removing the job duties which you were hired for. So that would just be my question. I don't have an answer for that right now.
I guess I would look at it, it's a fair point as far as education. Our previous administrator had no MBA, and when we asked her if she would go back to school for her MBA, she said, no, this is what you get.
What was her, do you remember what her degree was in?
She did have a master's in, shoot, I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I'd have to go back.
And basically what I'm saying is like we can't make decisions all based on the past, but we can make them based on the current. And as I look at it now, like our administrator / controller was hired because of the heavy in finance. Well, now we're saying that we want to get a controller to handle the finance. So what portion of that would be what the wage was based on, is my question.
Right, what's the delta? What's the difference when you redo a job description? What's the delta on the activities that are being done by that position? Yeah. I understand what you're asking.
But we
I'm
also,
glad someone does.
we're also looking at taking a 80-hour-a-week position and moving it back down to a respectable hour-a-week position.
Yeah.
On top of, to me, an education of 2.5 years of a very tumultuous time.
I agree.
So that,
I
I mean,
agree.
if you can keep the county going through that, you can keep the county going through pretty much anything.
Well, I would also say that, the job description was very apparent when the job, was put out there. It was applied for and accepted based on these conditions, and now we're finding out that that's just not sustainable. And it's not fair, and in my opinion, it should have never been combined to begin with, but that's just my opinion. But what we have to do now is we have to look out, okay, if we're splitting those, which we all agree, probably should happen because we don't want our administrator controller working 80 hours anymore. We have to say, okay, we have an administrator that currently makes what, 103?
101, I think it's at.
101, okay. And then we're looking at potentially getting a controller at 60.
55.
55, 60. I mean, now we're looking at, where are we gonna get the money from? That's what I would like to know, because like when we talked about
that's
the
my
budget.
question all the time.
When we talked about the budget this past cycle, we told department heads that we had no money for them.
Well, wait a minute, just to be clear, we did have a position, an open position,
Yes.
and that
Oh, that's right,
open.
yes,
funded.
okay, thank you.
So
Thank you for that.
so again, the delta would only be, I want to make sure we're clear, so it was a $45,000 position, so this would be a roughly $10,000 addition
Yeah, so,
to what's budgeted.
yeah, so then, okay, so we get that person in, and then. Yeah, okay. I guess it's gonna be hard for me to go back to my constituents and say, to be just frank and honest, Ms. Young took this position knowing what she was getting into. It was repeatedly stated that they were gonna hire her because it was gonna save the county $100,000. And here we go, 2 years in, and now we're gonna be costing the the county more.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from, and I did look up the spreadsheet where that $100,000 savings came from, because I'd heard it in the meetings, but I'm like, I have no idea where this is coming from, but I think, Ashley, you provided this to me, so thank you. There is no date on it, so it's hard to know when it was created, but it basically took, it took our previous administrators, 2023, and then compared it to a calendar year '24, and then Tracy, who is our board of, administrative assistant. So it would be a controller administrator and then an assistant, an administrative assistant. Combining those two positions, you come up with $201,969. And then when it was Emily as the administrator, Ashley as the controller, and Tracy as the administrative assistant, it was $300,000. So that's that $100,000 savings. So it was basically wiping out this position. That's how we came up with it. So that's where that $100,000 comes from. Honestly, I don't know how they even said that, because in the next breath, they created a position, which was this HR specialist / administrative clerk or whatever it was, at $45,000. So at most, they were saving.
55.
Exactly. So that was just sort of a misnomer to the community, in my opinion.
Well, and not only that, but they had also suggested a junior administrator because we needed, we would have needed more support, which if that would have gone through, Ashley wouldn't be in this position that she's in right now.
Correct. That's why they created that HR specialist / whatever it's called. Yeah.
So in my opinion,
Administrative clerk.
absolutely, we have to split these out, but we have to look at the financial of it.
Yep.
And the job descriptions, because if we have our administrator saying that her job description won't change much, but it kind of is, because we're going from a task-oriented to an overseeing-oriented position. And, based on, I don't know, to me, based on education and experience that she's gone through over the last 2 years as our administrator, what is that wage?
So I just did a really, really quick look.
Yeah.
And the bottom side of that scale was 93, the very bottom.
The bottom scale of what?
For a county administrator was 93.
Okay,
Was
gotcha.
the very bottom.
In Michigan County,
Yeah.
rural
And like I said,
counties,
that was
okay.
something quick, just put in, this is the first one that comes up, and then they go, obviously, depending, we
Gotcha,
know how the
gotcha.
counties go, so.
And that's not an administrator controller, that's an administrator.
That's an
Okay.
administrator.
Gotcha.
She
Correct.
was, Ashley, you were hired at 95, right?
Correct.
As an administrator / controller. And now we're taking that controller position away. What is, and of course, we have to give,
There's credit
to her.
for, yeah.
But, this is a big financial change,
Potentially.
potentially.
So this would be where negotiation with our administrator could come in handy and say, okay, we've got a 3-year contract, is that correct? And we say, okay, next contract, are we gonna forego a raise to help pay for this position?
Well, can we even, if we split out these positions,
Isn't the job,
Job.
does the contract have to be renegotiated?
negotiated?
It may, that'd be up to our administrator too.
If it has to be open, I defer that to legal to question that. I would assume it would be.
Oh, I see, I
To
hadn't
change
even thought about
Because the job
that.
description was attached to the contract.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
Which then opens a whole nother,
Well, I agree that it opens up more discussion, and like we're gonna have to work through that. But I think what's important here is creating this other position. I agree that we're gonna have to deal with the administrator / controller and that contract, and work with Ashley and all that good stuff. I think we're gonna have to do that. I hadn't even thought about that, so I think that's something that's gonna have to happen. But on the flip, we have had this open position for, this
HR.
and also administrative help.
Since June 23.
Yeah, for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think I want us to get out of this meeting is saying, we know what this job is going to be, for the most part. There's a few little finagling things we can do, but we know what that job is going to be. And we get that thing, and we get a price associated with it, having been 45, maybe now it's 55, whatever it ends up being. We decide that today, so we can move ahead with that while we would be negotiating with you. That's what I would like to see, so that we can get this job posted.
Yeah, I'd just like to see, I guess in my head, I want to see, like, this meeting, we're going to get this done. Next meeting, we'll get that done. By such and such a date, I want to
Absolutely.
have a controller.
Yeah.
I'm tired of going,
Posted.
driving down Ludington Street and looking over and seeing Ashley's car still in the
Yeah,
parking lot.
at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Well,
What you
that's,
doing going down Ludington Street at 10 o'clock at night?
I got to get prescriptions, I got to do all sorts of stuff.
that's basically what I was just saying, is let's come out of
Yeah.
this meeting with this job ready to get posted, and we can move forward with it. And then we're obviously going to have to deal with the ramifications of a change to a current position that
Yep.
has a contract
So
associated
then
with it.
from here, we'll be, be forwarding it to finance to find us 10 grand. Is that what?
Unless Ashley has some magic response to that.
It's hidden money.
No. No, I would go to, I guess we could either have it go to finance, or you can always bring it straight over to the Board of or the regular meeting and have the discussion there. But typically, our process is go to finance and have a discussion.
Well, should it go back to personnel first to do the changes to the job
Kind of the
description?
final draft.
And that would be
Yeah.
the final draft?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Ashley, if you would be prepared at the, obviously you would be, but at the finance committee saying, here's where this additional $10,000 is coming from. What I want to make sure that people understand is that it's not an additional $55,000. It's an additional 10.
Thank
And I
you for
want,
that,
I want to
yeah.
make sure people know that, because there's been this communication out in the public that, we're adding 55, but we're not.
We're not.
It's 10,000. And so that's, I think,
Yeah.
important.
Just another
I-
clarification,
I
so
got
everybody
one
knows.
question.
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
And Ashley, what would you, do you want us give up the controller and just be administrator? Or do you just want help?
I just want help, to be honest. But I guess what I'm confused is, what I've been hearing is we're giving up it's just gonna be an administrator, but the administrator has to know the finances in order to give. So I just wanna make sure, like, even though I might not be entering 1, 2, 3 into the system, I would still have to approve the budget adjustments that are done. I just don't actually enter it into the system. I review them, make sure it's compliant, and move forward. Journal entries are the same way. The previous administrator approved all of my journal entries, and I had to provide, so
That's why
I
I
just
think
want
it's
to
so,
make sure
that's why I
that,
think it's so important that your
It's-
job description has
Right.
the language changes from functional work
Right.
to oversight. And then you're still, as an administrator, you have oversight over the finances of the county, which you have to.
so then, like,
And
what
so
I
do we.
did as a control, I assisted the administrator and things. So, it's just like having a director of finance, which would be the administrator, directed the finance, and I assisted, so I was like assistant director
Mm-hmm.
of finance. I mean, that's the way I took it. Because another thing that confuses individuals is, controller can be a appointed position to elected position. There's a statute in there, but that's
Oh,
not
right,
the
but that's
same
not
thing.
how, yeah, we
No.
don't function that way, though, so, okay. No, I think this would be really good to change, just to ensure that the language is not overlapping on the positions, and then making sure that the oversight is very clear, that you're not actually acting as a controller, you're acting as oversight of all the controller's functions. It's
Right.
it's just like any other high-level management position, you have all of these people doing functional work, but you have to oversee that functional work.
Right, it's just like what we were talking about in our joint meeting with the airport. You know, moving in that direction where you have an airport director, and you have a finance, and you have an operations manager, just, you know, for the department. It's, you know, it's the same direction here.
Okay, so did we, so we're gonna go, job description goes back to personnel, hammer out those 2 job descriptions. I'll give you guys, I've got some stuff that I got that I think is really helpful. I'll give you that. But then once that happens, it goes to finance, and then it's the $10,000 that we need to figure out
Where we can find.
where that's coming from. Do we agree that this, and actually, I would ask you, Ashley, how did you develop this 55 to 65 range? Where did that come from?
That's where I ended.
Oh, okay, you said that. You already said that. I
No, if I'm not
apologize.
mistaken, we have, what, 45 already?
That's
budgeted.
budgeted,
Yeah.
yes.
Right, plus, when we create jobs, I also include the health insurance.
Yeah,
All of
benefits.
that, so that
Yeah.
part has been, budgeted
So
for, because
we're up
health
to-
insurance is
Yeah.
we're a hard cap.
Yeah, yeah. So the delta of what we're having the conversation about is $10,000.
I would
And that would be
include
for 55,000 start.
Yes,
10,000, and then also include FICA, we're responsible 7.65 of that.
Yep.
yeah,
Also include 15% for retirement.
but that's budgeted.
That's,
Well, because you're increasing that.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah,
are all
yeah, yeah,
factored
the
in.
10
I just want to
exactly,
be
yes.
really open about.
yep.
Yep,
I have a note
exactly.
for that item.
So,
Right.
so that, what is it, 90 cents on a dollar?
80,
80?
Yep.
No, because that 80 cents on a dollar includes health insurance.
Oh,
Health
so
insurance
it's-
doesn't move.
it's
Yeah.
less than
So
that.
it's
So
closer to
I would
90.
say,
Quick math, 12,000.
22,
She does really quick math.
22.65.
around there, I would say about 20%, 22.
Okay.
Okay. So, personnel's gonna take and look
Yes,
at those,
Finish it off.
and then they'll give it to finance.
yes.
We'll figure out
And
where.
then we will return it to the board for a decision.
yes. And then after that, we'll have to, I think personnel is going to have to deal with the changes to the administrator job description and then
Correct.
deal with the,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
So
deal
it's
with that.
estimated about 13,000, just. so-
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, on that, we will move to number 9, public comment. Any public comment? One more time. Any public comment?
And there's no remote public comment either.
And there's no remote. So, what I need is a motion to dissolve the committee of the whole.
Yeah, sounds fine. I just want to make sure that the.
Oh, you mean over
Is that what it is?
I want to double check, yes, since this is something.
Okay.
New in this, if you would indulge me a moment here.
Oh, it might have been my personal phone. It was probably my personal phone.
I'm just going by what I heard last.
You don't need to.
It's, so, disposition committee.
Just adjourn to get going.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait. Did we do board comments?
No, we didn't have.
We just
Not
did
on the-
public. It's not on.
Oh, it's not on
Yeah,
here?
no, not.
Oh,
for this.
gotcha,
No.
okay. Never mind then.
You can be public.
No, it's okay, I'll wait until the regular board meeting and I'll bring that up, so, okay. Motion to adjourn?
No, we're waiting.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
sorry, what
trying,
are
I
we
was trying to
waiting for?
find the other one, if Nancy knows.
It's not gonna,
specifically, that
it's
would
not gonna
help.
hurt,
Is it to dissolve
Oh,
or
because
do you
we're not
guys-
adjourning.
because we're not, yeah, we don't adjourn, we just dissolve, so we just walk away.
Oh, my God.
I don't know, it's always been my experience, you make a motion, it doesn't hurt anything when you make it official.
Yeah.
So, motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I'll support that. We were looking.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
We get sued from the agenda.
Just let us know when the meeting
Yeah.
ends.